We humans have a deep, biological fear of the ocean. If you are dropped into the middle of the open sea, with hundreds of feet of pitch-black water beneath you, your brain immediately panics. You feel entirely out of your element. You are slow, you are blind, and you are completely defenseless against whatever is swimming in the dark below. We comfort ourselves with a heroic evolutionary story. We are taught that hundreds of millions of years ago, life was trapped in the brutal, violent oceans. But then, a brave, visionary fish decided to crawl out of the toxic water. It grew lungs, it grew legs, and it conquered the dry land. Going from water to land is seen as the ultimate evolutionary victory. The land is safe. The land is home. But Mother Nature has a deeply cynical sense of humor. Because there was a moment in Earth's history when this entire heroic narrative completely collapsed. If you rewind the clock 50 million years back to the Eocene epoch, the land was not a safe haven. It was an absolute, unforgiving death trap. Following the extinction of the dinosaurs, the continents were swarming with massive, terrifying apex predators. There were gigantic, flightless terror birds that stood 10 feet tall with beaks designed to crush skulls. There were massive land-dwelling crocodilians. It was a biological war zone, an endless nightmare of teeth and claws. And right in the middle of this terrestrial hell lived a creature named Pakicetus. If you saw a Pakicetus today, you wouldn't be impressed. It was a small, four-legged mammal with hooves. It looked like a bizarre, pathetic mix between a skinny wolf and a rat. It had no armor, no massive claws, and no devastating bite force. In the brutal hierarchy of Eocene predators, Pakicetus was at the very bottom of the food chain. It was nothing but a walking biological snack. Every single day was an agonizing game of hide-and-seek. But Pakicetus did not have the physical strength to fight back. It couldn't outrun the fastest predators. It was cornered. So, this weird, skinny land dog looked at the terrifying, pitch-black, endless ocean and made the most humiliating, cowardly, and absolutely brilliant decision in evolutionary history. It decided to go back. Think about how insane this is. It took life roughly 300 million years of painful, agonizing evolution to escape the ocean, to build lungs that could breathe air, to engineer heavy bones and legs that could walk against gravity. And Pakicetus just threw all of it in the biological trash can. It started hanging out in the shallow waters, just deep enough to hide its scent from the terror birds. When a predator approached on land, it would hold its breath and sink below the surface. It was the evolutionary equivalent of hiding under the bed. But it couldn't stay in the shallows forever. The land was getting too dangerous. So, generation after generation, these cowardly little mammals waded deeper and deeper and deeper into the abyss. This is where evolution executes its darkest magic. Because the environment always forces a biological redesign. If you are going to hide in the water forever, legs are a terrible disadvantage. They create drag. So, nature brutally amputated them. Over millions of years, the front legs fused into highly efficient flippers. The back legs shrank, withered away, and completely disappeared inside their bodies. But breathing was still a problem. They were mammals. They still had to come to the surface for air, exposing themselves to danger. So, nature took their nose, and over thousands of generations, literally dragged it up their face, completely over their forehead, and slapped it on the very top of their skull. They didn't even have to lift their heads out of the water anymore. They just breached the surface, took a massive hit of oxygen, and disappeared back into the void. They lost their fur. They became sleek, hydrodynamic, and completely insulated by thick layers of fat. Pakicetus, the pathetic, skinny, terrified land dog, had transformed into a living, breathing biological submarine. It had completely abandoned the terrestrial world to embrace a life of endless maritime isolation. And this is where the story stops being a tragedy and turns into the ultimate flex in natural history. Because the ocean wasn't just a hiding place. It was an unlimited buffet. Without the heavy burden of gravity restricting their bone growth, and with an endless supply of marine protein, these creatures began to grow, and grow, and grow. They didn't just survive their retreat into the water. They absolutely conquered the planet. That cowardly little rat wolf evolved into the cetaceans, the whales. Today, the descendants of Pakicetus are the undisputed, unchallenged kings of the deep. They evolved into the blue whale, a creature so astronomically massive that its heart is the size of a car, and its veins are large enough for a human child to swim through. It is the largest animal to have ever existed in the history of Earth, bigger than any dinosaur. And if sheer size wasn't enough, another branch of that family evolved into the orca, the killer whale. A highly intelligent, psychopathic pack hunter that is so devastatingly powerful, it hunts great white sharks just to eat their livers for fun. We humans love to worship bravery. We love stories about standing your ground, fighting against the odds, and conquering your enemies. We view retreating as a shameful failure. But nature does not care about your honor. Nature only cares about who is left standing at the end of the game. The most magnificent, powerful, and terrifying creatures on this planet did not win by fighting the monsters on land. They won by being cowards. They won by looking at an unwinnable war, turning their backs, and disappearing into the water. So the next time you feel like you have to fight every battle, or that retreating makes you weak, remember the Pakicetus. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is completely abandon the game, change your environment, and let the fools on land destroy each other while you quietly become a giant in the deep.